The way I want to kick off this program is to bring you along vicariously on a space shuttle launch. So for the next few minutes, I want everybody to suspend disbelief, pretend that we're all fellow crew members. It's T-minus 3 hours before liftoff. We're walking from the crew quarters. We climb into the crew van, drive to the launch pad, take the elevator to the cockpit level, exit that, walk across the access arm. You think your heart rate might be up right about now? You bet, it's choking you. We enter the white room where we're dressed in our harnesses. Then we get down on our hands and knees and crawl into the cockpit. There'll be technicians inside who help lay us back into our chairs. They will strap us to those chairs, and then as they leave, they will close the side hatch, the access arm will be retracted, and we will be left alone. Alone to deal with the fear and joy that overwhelm us in these moments. Fear that we might die on this mission, and that's certainly a possible outcome. We'll fear for our lives we're out there. But at the same time that we're terrified, we're also going to be boundlessly joyful. Because for most astronauts, it truly is a lifetime quest to make this flight. And with that at hand, we're going to be overwhelmed with joy. Physically, let me tell you what's going to overwhelm us. Laying out there all those hours on our backs with our legs elevated, with every flicker of a second off that countdown clock, we're going to swear another quart of urine has been dumped into our bladders. We're going to have to urinate in a really bad way. What are we going to do? We're going to use our urine collection device, seen modeled here by yours truly. We wear an adult diaper, but we never say that. It doesn't fit the Right Stuff image to tell people you wear a diaper, so we say we wear a urine collection device. Well, call it whatever you want. It is a diaper. There are 3 times in an astronaut's life you're trapped in a pressure suit, can't get to a toilet, and must have on one of these diapers. And those 3 times are launch, landing, and a spacewalk. The rest of the time, you can use the toilet. By the way, whenever I show this slide, I am always struck by the remarkable resemblance between myself and this gentleman right here, Matthew McConaughey. Hey, when I'm on the beach holding my surfboard, I'm a dead ringer for this dude. Check it out, right there. That is a scary, scary picture there. What happens to the human body in weightlessness? Well, if you have long hair, ladies, you're going to have a bad hair day up in space. No doubt about that. You know, another thing that happens up there is about half the astronauts get sick and end up vomiting. Nobody knows what causes that, but we do know that it's not Earth motion sickness. In other words, if you get seasick, car sick, plane sick here on Earth, it will not predict whether you're going to get space sick up in space. Now, when might you die in weightlessness if you vomited? Doing what? If you're out on a spacewalk and you vomit inside that helmet, there's no way to get the fluid away from you. You could aspirate it and choke to death, or it could gum up the oxygen circulation system. This is one reason why NASA never sends astronauts out to do spacewalks early in a mission, and that's to give time for people to get over this space sickness in case they're affected by it. We do take a medicine that could be injected in people up there to make them stop vomiting. It's called Phenigrin. Unfortunately, Phenigrin carries a warning label. Do not operate heavy machinery under the influence of this drug. Not the best thing to give astronauts, but it works. I saw somebody getting a shot of Phenigrin on one of my missions, and I can now describe to you how you bleed in weightlessness. We had a guy who was vomiting, wanted a shot. We didn't have a doctor aboard to give the shot, so that guy giving that shot had never given one before in his life. Let me tell you, I'd have to feel real bad before I'd let a Marine come at me with a needle. Anyway, he stuck the needle in the guy's hip, but he actually moved the needle and it tore the guy's skin a little bit, pulled the needle out, and the guy started bleeding. Well, here on Earth, the blood would run down his leg, obviously. But up in weightlessness, nothing runs. So what happened to that blood? It bubbled out, just formed a ball, growing bigger and bigger on his hip. He moved, and this marble of blood broke loose, started floating through the cockpit, giving new meaning, by the way, to airborne pathogen. It was fascinating to watch, but then it wasn't me doing the bleeding. This is lightning flashing way down on the ground. Beautiful to watch that. This video was taken over the Gulf of Mexico, looking north into the southeast part of the U.S., so the blob of lights you see top center are the lights of Atlanta. Over to the right, you'll see the lights of Jacksonville, Florida. As the camera pans down from left to right, you see the lights of St. Petersburg, Tampa, and Orlando. Beautiful to look at city lights from space. Here's how we sleep up there. We zip ourselves into sleep restraints. The gentleman in the foreground is not asleep. He's holding his hands, because when you fall asleep, what you see in the background occurs. Your arms float out in front of your face. That is so weird to wake up in the middle of the night, look around the spaceship and see people asleep with their arms floating at them. Look like they're in suspended animation. By the way, you might ask yourselves, why do we even bother getting in sleep restraints up there? You're weightless. You're floating. Every position is identical. If you want to go to sleep, just close your eyes and go to sleep. Problem with that is you will drift around the cockpit and perhaps end up in an embarrassing embrace with a fellow crew member. So that's why we zip ourselves into these sleep restraints. The number one question I'm ever asked as an astronaut is, how does our space toilet work? So let me answer that. Our toilet has no water in it. Water will not flow in weightlessness. We have to use something else to collect waste. We use air. Basically, our toilet is a vacuum cleaner. Do not attempt this at home. Particularly you males, you could be seriously injured. Here's our urinal. It's Velcroed out of the way for launch in this photo, but it is a vacuum cleaner hose. There's different shaped funnels that twist on the end of the hose for males and females to use. Urinate in that hose. The urine is sucked down that hose, goes into a tank, and about every 3 days, when the tank is full, we dump the urine into space, and that is spectacularly beautiful to watch. The urine freezes into a glitter of ice crystals shimmering in the sun. It's magnificent to look at frozen urine floating around up in space. Okay, how do we collect solid waste with a vacuum cleaner? We have a small opening on the top of the toilet. There's a fan down in the bottom that's drawing air down. So right underneath you, air is flowing in 360 degrees, coming in and going down. That pulls the waste away from your body, down inside that big container. When you're done, you take the lever indicated by that red arrow. You move the lever back. It slides a cover across the opening, traps the solid waste below. Solid waste is returned to Earth. It's not dumped overboard, and I'll bet everybody out there is glad to hear that. If we ever dump solid waste overboard, it's going to give new meaning to wishing upon a falling star. Okay, you can't sit on a toilet in weightlessness, but when you're using it, you want to be attached to it. How do we do that? Those are thigh restraints. You pull these up against a spring force, you twist them in, and the spring force clamps your thighs to keep you on the toilet seat. You don't want to float off your toilet seat up there in space. Here's what Destiny had to work with. Teenage Mike Mullane. Trust me, you would not have wanted him knocking on your doors and dating your daughters. That put the fear of God in you. People assume Destiny had genius to work with. Gosh, if I'm an astronaut now, I had to have been a child genius. Well, here's my high school yearbook photo. Down in Ambition it says, to attend the Air Force Academy. I couldn't get into the Air Force Academy. My grades weren't good enough. West Point took me, which frankly doesn't say a lot about West Point. But in all fairness to West Point, I was a third alternate from my congressional district. I barely made it into West Point, and at graduation West Point, I wasn't on the stage getting awards for academic excellence. So Destiny did not have genius to work with. Let me show you a few other things that Destiny struggled with. This is the varsity club in my high school, the star athletes in my high school. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in this picture. Destiny didn't have athleticism to work with. See this lady? This is the homecoming queen. I didn't date the homecoming queen. Destiny didn't have good looks to work with. This next slide says it all, what Destiny had in Teenage Mike Mullane. The dedication page is out of my high school yearbook. I have one dedication, and look what it reads. You missed Korea, but here's hoping you make Vietnam. I swear to you, that is the only dedication I have in my entire high school yearbook. I had, as I said, the great good fortune of growing up here in Albuquerque, so this vast desert right outside the door, I could indulge my interest in homemade rocketry. Rockets, these weren't so much rockets as pipe bombs with fins. Amazing I didn't blow myself to hell and back with these things. But I was setting a goal, by the way, folks, I was setting a goal, even this young, of being a John Glenn or an Alan Shepard, of riding a rocket into space. I'd set the bar very, very high in my life at a very young age. Going back to these homemade rockets, sometimes I needed a wind tunnel. Didn't have one, so I used my dad's car as a wind tunnel. If I saw this today, I'd dial 911. Sometimes I tested these things off the roof of my parents' house. A dumb idea. Neighbors were sure happy to see me leave. Here I am setting up one of my creations for launch. Here I am legging it out after lighting a fuse. There's ignition, and there's detonation. You know, people here, I flew combat in Vietnam, flew 3 times in the shuttle, and they say, wow, look at all that danger you lived in your life. Trust me, folks, the most dangerous period any male ever lives isn't whatever they do as an adult male. It's when they're a teenage boy. When you're a teenage boy, you don't have a brain in your head. There's proof of it right there. Here's one of my successful launches. Here's one of my rockets parachuting back to the desert. Here I am recovering one of those rockets. I'm going to re-show this video. I want you to notice the young woman walking off the slide to the right there, about 19 years old. That is now my wife of 43 years. There's a woman who will never be able to say, I didn't know what I was getting into. Not when I have that video.